Grease isn't just a movie, it's a phenomenon. But beneath the slicked hair, catchy tunes, and high school nostalgia, there's a treasure trove of strange, surprising, and downright eerie facts you've probably never heard. From real injuries to sewn-on pants and the ghost of Elvis himself. What happened behind the scenes will blow your mind. Let's start with how Grease came to be, because, believe it or not, it all began with a love for music. But it was not the kind you'd expect. The creators of the Grease stage musical, Jim Jacobs and Warren Casey, were listening to Led Zeppelin when they got the idea. The result? A tribute to 1950s high school culture, drenched in the sound of doo-wop and teenage dreams. But this wasn't just about nostalgia. They were channeling the spirit of an era that had already passed by the time the 1970s rolled around, fusing rock and roll with Broadway energy. That blend created a stage show that would eventually explode into the iconic 1978 film we all know. Now imagine this. Henry Winkler, known to the world as the Fonz from Happy Days, was offered the role of Danny Zuko. It would have been a perfect fit, right? Wrong. Winkler turned it down flat. Why? Because he didn't want to be typecast. He felt he'd already nailed the cool guy persona on television, and doing it again on the big screen might forever trap him in that image. Ironically, the role went to John Travolta, and history was made. Winkler later admitted that it was the right call. Travolta brought a charm and energy that truly defined Zuko. But it's one of those fascinating Hollywood what-ifs that makes you wonder how different Grease could have been. But the eerie factor doesn't stop there. Let's talk about Elvis Presley. The king of rock and roll had a strange, spectral connection to Grease. Initially, producers wanted Elvis to play the role of Teen Angel, the mysterious figure who sings Beauty School Dropout. It would have been a legendary cameo, especially given Elvis's cultural connection to the 1950s. Unfortunately, he didn't take the part. But here's the twist. The scene where Frankie Avalon plays Teen Angel includes a line referencing Elvis, and it was filmed on August 16, 1977. That's the very day Elvis died. The cast and crew were unaware of the tragic timing as they filmed the sequence, but when they found out, the coincidence sent a chill down everyone's spine. It's one of those facts that's almost too surreal to believe. Meanwhile, family ties were at play behind the scenes. John Travolta wasn't just acting, he was helping family too. His real-life sister, Ellen Travolta, appears in the film. How? John invited her on set and she played a waitress during the dance contest scene. It's a blink and you'll miss it moment. But a nice bit of trivia that highlights how the film was, in many ways, a family affair for the cast. But for some actors, Grease took a physical toll. Jeff Conaway, who played the role of Kenickie, got badly hurt while filming Grease. During the choreography, he sustained a back injury that would haunt him for years. Unfortunately, the pain became chronic, and he turned to prescription medication for relief. Over time, this dependency grew worse, and it contributed to a long-term addiction that tragically ended his life in 2011. It's a sobering reminder that even in high-energy musicals, the toll on actors can be real and lasting. You might think Sandy, Olivia Newton-John's sweet and proper character, was always meant to be the Australian girl next door. But that wasn't the original plan. In the early versions of the musical, Sandy was named Sandy Dombrowski and was written as a Polish-American girl from Chicago. But when Olivia Newton-John was cast, the filmmakers changed her background and her last name to Sandy Olsen, making her an Australian transfer student. Why? Because Olivia's natural Australian accent would have been hard to hide, the change worked better for the character's outsider image. The rewrite made the character more believable and added an international twist to the story's dynamic. One thing that always stands out when watching Grease is how polished and adult the characters look. Most cast members were far too old to play high school students. Stockard Channing, who played Rizzo, was 33 years old during filming. Many of her co-stars were in their late 20s. The director, Randall Kleiser, was aware of this issue, so he devised a strategy known as the crow's feet test. They passed if actors smiled and didn't show too many crow's feet around their eyes. It was a weird visual way of determining who could still pass for a teen on camera. The result? A high school full of mature-looking students, but somehow it worked. Speaking of Randall Kleiser, he didn't leave the set unscathed either. While filming the Thunder Road race scene, where Danny and Leo compete in the LA River Canal, Kleiser spent so much time in the murky water that he contracted a foot infection. The LA River, notorious for its pollution, was far from sanitary, but Kleiser was determined to get the right shots, even if it meant wading through questionable water. The infection wasn't life-threatening, but it was just another example of the physical risks that went into making this seemingly light-hearted musical. Loving these behind-the-scenes twists? There's more coming, so if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to keep cruising with us through Hollywood's hidden history. Now back to the weirdness. Let's talk about the prom scene. It's one of the most memorable parts of the movie. It is vibrant, chaotic, and full of energy, but filming it was a nightmare. The gym where it was shot had no air conditioning, and filming occurred during the summer heat. Inside, temperatures reached a brutal 116 degrees Fahrenheit. The heat was so intense that several extras fainted during the shoot. Cast and crew were sweating buckets, makeup was melting, and keeping the energy up for multiple takes was exhausting. Still, the final product looks effortless, even though it was filmed in unbearable conditions. And finally, one of the strangest wardrobe malfunctions turned into a true story of commitment. Remember Sandy's unforgettable black outfit in the final scene, which marked her transformation? Her pants had a broken zipper, and there was no time to fix it. So what did the costume department do? They sewed Olivia Newton-John into the pants. She couldn't take bathroom breaks or drink much water for the entire day. That sexy, tight black look came at the cost of comfort and mobility, but it became one of movie history's most iconic costume moments. The dedication to the look paid off, though Olivia later admitted it was one of the most uncomfortable filming days she ever had. As a quirky extra, here's one last fact that adds another layer of realism to the film. Jeff Conaway and Stockard Channing, who played Kenickie and Rizzo, wanted their on-screen chemistry to feel authentic. So to make their romance seem real, Conaway gave Channing actual hickeys before their scenes. That's right, those weren't movie makeup effects. They were the real deal. It's a bizarre method, sure, but it worked on screen. Their characters' fiery, complicated relationship had just the right amount of realism, and now you know one of the strangest reasons why. And here's another layer to the Grease legacy that many fans overlook. How much of the film's success hinged on improvisation and last-minute changes. Many scenes were reworked on the spot, and the actors had to roll with it. Take the legendary "You're the One That I Want" number. It wasn't even part of the original stage musical. It was written specifically for the film and rushed into production after Olivia Newton-John's transformation idea came to life. The moment was electric, both on screen and off. Travolta and Newton-John's chemistry was so strong that the scene barely needed rehearsal. That same spontaneity shaped other parts of the film, such as the carnival finale, which was shot in just one day with minimal choreography. The cast danced on real rides with real danger. There were no safety harnesses, no second takes. That kind of raw, energetic risk-taking is part of what makes Grease not just entertaining, but unforgettable. So there you have it. Grease might look like pure 1950s fun on the surface, but behind the scenes, it was full of strange twists, eerie coincidences, real pain, family cameos, and a lot of sweat and stitches. The movie you've watched a dozen times got much weirder. The Caped Crusader is easily one of the most recognizable faces across the globe. Known for his brooding demeanor and gadgets of choice, he was first introduced to the big screen in the 1960s and was an instant hit. But there was more mystery afoot than just what happened on the show. From scandalous secrets on set to quirky spin-offs and memorabilia being released, here are 10 weird facts about the 1960s Batman show. What could Batman and the team have been up to on the set of the show? And why was the show actually canceled? Let's find out together. Number 10. Robin, the boy wonder who earned a pittance. Adam West, the actor who played the titular character of Batman on screen, was paid a handsome $2,000 per episode in the 60s, which is the equivalent of $21,000 per episode by today's standards. But what's surprising is that Burt Ward, the actor who played the role of Robin, was only paid a meager $350 per episode. This was due to Burt being a relatively unknown name in the movie industry at the time. Number 9. The Green Hornet and the Caped Crusader. Believe it or not, the 60s had some of the craziest crossovers of its time, with none more iconic than the crossover between the Green Hornet and the Caped Crusader of the night. The two crime fighters acknowledged each other's existence and even seemed to promote each other's shows, with advertisements for their programs showing up in each other's show. The crossover between the two shows helped introduce fans to the iconic martial arts of Bruce Lee. The four of them would then team up in a later episode to defeat Colonel Gum and save the day. Number 8. The Origins of Barbara Gordon. Barbara Gordon, the daughter of Jim Gordon, is an iconic member of the Bat family, with her role being crucial to the Batman mythos. But what many Batman fans don't know is that Barbara Gordon as a character only came into existence because of the 60s TV show. Her character did not exist till William Dozier made a request to DC Comics to introduce her for the show's continuity. Yvonne Craig was introduced as Barbara Gordon in the 3rd season of the show. Yvonne Craig's Batgirl was the first superheroine to feature on TV screens and became a hit among many of the children who watched the show. But sadly, Yvonne's character was a last-ditch effort to raise interest in the show, which it failed to do, but Barbara Gordon ended up staying. Number 7. Batman's attempts at romance. The 60s was an era in which humanity saw many changes taking place in a short span of time, with many counterculture movements like the hippie culture taking off, but nothing was more surprising than Batman's attempt to sing a song. Adam West released a single during the show's run in which he embodies the role of Batman trying his hand at wooing a woman, but is constantly interrupted by the boy wonder Robin. The song is definitely no jazz classic and is certainly an acquired taste, but is definitely worth a listen if you consider yourself a fan of Batman. Number 6. From saving Gotham to public service announcements. Adam West initially donned the costume just for the show, but he eventually began to realize just how influential the character was. Batman resonated not just with children, but with adults as well. And as such, he believed that he had an obligation to use this character to raise awareness on several matters. The 60s were a time when many conventional habits like smoking were discovered to be extremely harmful. But it wasn't just limited to health campaigns. Batman was also used to inform the public about the gender pay disparity and the people's right to vote during a time when the foundations of democracy were called into question in places like the United States. How many facts about the 1960s version of the Caped Crusader were you aware of? Let us know down in the comments section. And if you've enjoyed the video so far, make sure to like this video. Number 5. Batman was almost an NFL quarterback. Ed Graham, one of the producers of the Batman TV show, initially envisioned a much more serious take on the Caped Crusader, just like his counterpart Superman had in the 50s in The Adventures of Superman. So you can imagine his disappointment when he saw the kitschy, campy take that the show eventually embodied in its final production. Graham's had initially offered CBS the chance to produce the show, and they had taken him up on the offer and even cast Los Angeles Rams quarterback Mike Henry to play the role of Batman. But CBS kept delaying production, which made Henry back out and opt for the role of Tarzan instead. The show was eventually picked up by ABC, which led to a recasting where Adam West was cast instead. Number 4. Frank Sinatra as the Joker. Now, if you think Cesar Romero was over the top as the Joker, just imagine silk-voiced Frank Sinatra leading the role instead. Apart from the fact that Frank had known affiliations with the mob, watching the man we know as the face of American jazz put on white makeup, red lipstick, and dye his hair green would have been incredibly odd. Frank had expressed his interest in showing up on the show in some capacity and was initially considered for the role of Joker. But that spot was eventually filled in by Cesar Romero, who became a staple of Batman's enemy roster. Just imagine just how odd it would have been to watch Sinatra crooning in his iconic voice while threatening Adam West's Batman. But if you thought that's crazy, check out what's coming up next. Number 3. The Batmobile only cost $1. Believe it or not, the Batmobile technically cost just a single dollar. Of course, this isn't the entire truth, but it's not a lie either. The sleek, elegant Batmobile was a concept car called Futura, built by the Lincoln Motor Company. While the car cost $250,000 to build, it ended up just being a concept car that was never released for sale. Seeing no further use for the car, they sold it to George Barris, a car customizer, for $1 whole. You heard that right? The car eventually found purpose again when the studio called Barris and requested a car for the Batmobile. Barris added around $30,000 worth of modifications and converted the Futura into the iconic Batmobile that we all know of today. Number 2. Batman on and off screen. West had launched into worldwide acclaim for his portrayal of Batman. He was the first ever person to physically play the role of Batman and was revered by many for the same. But West wasn't just awesome on screen. He was a real-life crime-stopping crusader even when the cameras weren't on him. When vacationing in Maui, the caped crusader had noticed a man who was wielding a machete and walking towards a woman. When he realized that the man had the intention to hurt the girl with the machete, he used his lounge chair to get in between the man and the woman and pin the criminal till the authorities arrived. Number 1. Teaching British children to cross roads. Although Batman was intended for global audiences, the Batman TV show was only aired in America. But this did not stop the show from becoming popular internationally. The British also widely revered it and had a cult following behind it. Batman had become the face of the 60s and, as such, was featured on many public service announcements, like the benefits of savings bonds, like we talked about before. But what truly surprised fans is when Batman took to the streets of Britain not to fight crime, but to teach road safety. This unexpected public information film, or PF for short, was made for the Central Office of Information, and it featured Batman taking a break from crime fighting to teach proper road safety techniques. Star Trek didn't just shape science fiction, it helped define it. But behind the polished decks of the Enterprise lies a universe of bizarre, forgotten, and controversial truths. Today we're going boldly into the strangest corners of Trek history. You know Spock and Kirk. But do you know the secret pilot, the unmade spin-offs, the backstage injuries, or the origins of the Vulcan salute? Before Star Trek became the global sci-fi franchise we know today, it almost died on arrival. The original pilot, titled The Cage, was shot in 1965 and featured a very different captain, Jeffrey Hunter as Christopher Pike, and a very different crew. The only familiar face? Leonard Nimoy as Spock, though even he appeared more emotional and less restrained than fans would later know him. NBC ultimately rejected the pilot, citing a lack of warmth and diversity. But creator Gene Roddenberry wasn't done. He successfully convinced the network to give him another chance. And when Hunter declined to return, Roddenberry cast William Shatner as Captain James T. Kirk. That decision would change television forever. Now let's warp ahead to a forgotten spin-off attempt. In the second season, Roddenberry co-wrote an episode called Assignment, Earth. On the surface, it seemed like just another Trek adventure. But in truth, it was a backdoor pilot for a new series starring Robert Lansing as the mysterious Gary Seven and Terry Garr as his secretary, Roberta Lincoln. The plan was to launch a new show about time-traveling agents protecting Earth from itself. However, things fell apart behind the scenes. Terry Garr later revealed her deep discomfort on set. Roddenberry reportedly kept demanding that her skirt be shortened, insisting on adjusting it himself. The unprofessional and inappropriate behavior soured her experience, and Garr distanced herself from Star Trek for the rest of her career. The pilot was never picked up, and Assignment, Earth remains a relic of what might have been. Speaking of hidden histories, Few know that before he wore the Starfleet badge, William Shatner was already diving into bold and difficult roles. In 1962's The Intruder, he played a racist provocateur stirring up violence in a southern town. The film was controversial and ahead of its time, and Shatner's portrayal was deeply unsettling. He also starred in the legendary Twilight Zone episode Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, playing a paranoid airline passenger convinced that a monster is sabotaging the plane. These intense performances showcased his acting range, and they gave a glimpse of the commanding, emotionally intense presence he'd later bring to Captain Kirk. Then there's the case of Harry Mudd, the lovable con man of the Trek universe. Roger Carmel played the role in 2 episodes of the original series and became a fan favorite. What many don't know is that there were serious plans to build an entire spin-off around him. Roddenberry and NBC discussed turning Mudd into the star of a new show, one centered on interstellar scams and space piracy. Unfortunately, Roddenberry was overwhelmed with the main series and never followed through. Later, Mudd was considered for Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, and The Next Generation, but conflicting schedules and production delays kept the character grounded. What could have been a comedy-tinged Trek spin-off faded into history. Not all weird facts are fun. Some are downright dangerous. During the filming of the episode The Apple, the crew set up a scene where Spock throws a rock that explodes, but the explosion was far stronger than expected. The blast knocked actors off their feet and sent them rushing to a studio doctor. DeForest Kelley, Dr. McCoy, suffered permanent ringing in his ears. Leonard Nimoy also sustained long-term hearing damage. William Shatner, who already had mild hearing loss, found his condition worsening after the blast. He eventually became an advocate for hearing health and worked with the American Tinnitus Association to spread awareness. Behind the scenes, Star Trek could be as dangerous as an actual space mission. Sometimes iconic moments come from deeply personal experiences. Leonard Nimoy, the man behind Spock, created the famous Vulcan salute from a memory burned into his childhood. As a boy in an Orthodox Jewish synagogue, Nimoy watched as rabbis performed a ritual blessing with their fingers split into a V shape. He was warned not to look, but curiosity won. The visual stuck with him. Years later, when Star Trek introduced Spock's alien culture, Nimoy suggested the gesture as a fitting greeting, something foreign yet dignified. Paired with the phrase, "live long and prosper," it became a cornerstone of Vulcan identity. That single idea, rooted in ancient tradition, is now one of science fiction's most recognizable symbols. Dr. McCoy's famous quip, "I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer," logically became a comedic staple of the show. But the phrase wasn't new. Its origin can be traced back to the 1933 film The Kennel Murder Case, where a character shouts, "I'm a doctor, not a magician." Roddenberry and his writers borrowed the idea, but it was DeForest Kelley who made it a signature line. His dry wit, frustration, and impeccable timing turned a borrowed phrase into one of the most quoted gags in sci-fi history. Over time, the line was playfully adapted to fit increasingly absurd scenarios, adding levity to the otherwise high-stakes missions. When it comes to fandom, the Star Trek writers assumed William Shatner's Captain Kirk would be the show's primary heartthrob. He was handsome, confident, and adventurous, a natural fit. But the audience had different plans. It was Spock, the emotionally repressed Vulcan with the sharp eyebrows and calm voice, who stole the show, especially among women. Leonard Nimoy received enormous amounts of fan mail, much of it from female admirers who were drawn to Spock's mystery and depth. The writers hadn't seen it coming. The quiet, logical science officer outshone the daring captain in fan devotion, flipping network expectations on their head. Hey, quick check-in. Are you enjoying these weird Star Trek facts so far? If you're loving the deep cuts and surprising details, go ahead and drop a like. Now back to the next strange fact you probably missed. Not every moment in Trek history is warm and fuzzy. In 1986, William Shatner hosted Saturday Night Live and performed a skit mocking Star Trek conventions. In character, he told fans to get a life, suggesting they had taken things too far by obsessing over a TV show. The sketch was meant as satire, but many fans didn't find it funny. They felt insulted, as though Shatner was ridiculing the very people who had kept the show alive for decades. The backlash was swift. Shatner later clarified that the bit was written in good humor, but the incident became a symbol of the complicated relationship between actors and their devoted fan base. Budget constraints often bring out the most creative solutions, or the most desperate. The original Star Trek series had a budget of just $193,000 per episode, which may sound like a lot, but it was tight even by 1960s standards. That's around $1.3 million today, still well below what modern sci-fi episodes cost. To cut corners, the studio hired a non-union shop to make the crew uniforms, which was technically illegal. To avoid scrutiny, the wardrobe had to be smuggled onto the set. No labels, no receipts, no paper trail. While the actors were exploring strange new worlds, someone behind the scenes was quietly breaking labor laws. And now for the bonus fact, one that shows just how much Star Trek owed to Leonard Nimoy's creative vision. In the episode The Enemy Within, the script called for Spock to knock out an aggressive duplicate of Kirk with a simple punch. But Nimoy objected. He believed Spock, being a highly logical and disciplined alien, wouldn't resort to brute force. So he invented the Vulcan nerve pinch, a subtle, elegant technique where a precise squeeze to the neck would instantly incapacitate someone. It was pure science fiction invention, and Shatner sold it with a dramatic, perfectly timed collapse. That simple change added another layer to Spock's persona and became a signature move throughout the franchise. From unaired pilots to shady costume deals, from spiritual inspirations to real injuries, Star Trek wasn't just a journey through space. It was a chaotic, creative, and sometimes controversial voyage behind the scenes. These 10 facts prove that the story of Star Trek is as strange as any alien world they ever visited. Which of these facts surprised you the most? Gilligan's Island is a phenomenon that will probably never be recreated again. But behind the coconut trees of our studio island, an island's worth of secrets are buried. Some of these facts are strange, bizarre, or outright disturbing, from the original choice for Gilligan to the real reason why the show ended. What happened behind the scenes will blow your mind. Number 10. The original choice for Gilligan. Most of us who have watched the show cannot imagine anyone other than Bob Denver playing the role of Gilligan. But the truth of the matter is that Gilligan was cast well before Bob took on the role, and it was offered to a person you would never imagine, Jerry Van Dyke, Dick Van Dyke's brother. Jerry turned down the offer nonetheless because he wanted to follow in his brother's footsteps and star in his own show instead of working with an ensemble cast. And he did so with the show My Mother the Car, but the show was considerably short-lived and did not have half the ratings Gilligan's Island did. Number 9. The Parking Lot Island. Gilligan's Island's quirkiness and charming writing resonate throughout generations and entertain anyone who is willing to give it a chance. In an ironic twist, though, you can drive right up to the set where the show was shot and even sit in your car while you're on the set. Why, you ask? Because the set was turned into a parking lot. The set was used by many other shows like Saint, Elsewhere, and Evening Shade. Some 30 years later, in 1995, the studio finally decided that it was time for some remodeling, and the lagoon was paved over to increase the parking area for employees. Number 8. Will it succeed? The entire cast of Gilligan's Island, although pulling off phenomenal performances, were initially doubtful whether the show would even be picked up by any TV channels, and were somewhat relieved in a sense. Natalie Schafer, who played Mrs. Howell, was sure no one would even see her performance, while Tina Louise, who played Ginger, was misled into thinking she would have a more central role. Even Bob Denver was unsure about his role in the show, as he had just come off playing the role of a quirky beatnik named Maynard on the TV series The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis. But thankfully, the show went on to receive the highest viewer ratings the year it aired, and went on to produce 2 more seasons and many spin-offs. Speaking of spin-offs, the next fact is sure to amaze you. Number 7. Gilligan's Dessert. Following the success of Gilligan's Island and the Brady Bunch, another show was made by the same producer of Gilligan's Island, Sherwood Schwartz. He decided to give Gilligan's Island the desert spin-off it deserved and created a new show using Gilligan's Island's original formula in 1974. The show was called Dusty's Trail and featured Bob Denver and a new lineup of stars in this Wild West spin-off of Gilligan's Island. The show was not able to replicate the success Gilligan's Island had and eventually had to be canceled due to poor ratings. While the vision for more seasons was planned, it had to be dropped because the ratings just did not show any prospect for a good turnover with another season. Number 6. The Oldest Young Person. The cast of Gilligan's Island was relatively young when the show first debuted. Bob Denver, who played Gilligan, was only 29, and the rest of the cast were believed to be somewhere between the ages of 30 and 50. Everyone was quite open with their age except for Natalie Schaffer, who kept it a mystery till her death in the 90s, which was when the cast found out the true age of Schaffer, and needless to say, it was a shock. In reality, Schaffer was ironically the eldest person in the cast, and no one realized it because of how youthful she looked. It was discovered that Schaffer was actually born in the year 1900 and was a staggering 64 years of age when she starred in Gilligan's Island. Talk about a real-life vampire. How many facts did you know so far? If you've been enjoying the in-depth look into Gilligan's Island, make sure to drop a like. Now to the top 5 facts. Number 5. The island adjacent to the highway. Gilligan's Island did a fine job of convincing all of us that the cast were indeed stranded on some white-sanded lagoon in the middle of nowhere, when in reality, the cast were not 5 minutes away from the state highway. The studio created an artificial lagoon with a lake, but they found it quite difficult to maintain. In addition to this, the set was so close to the highway that the production crew could not shoot while it was rush hour because the noise of the vehicles would be picked up on the microphone. So they had to schedule their shoots around the traffic in Los Angeles. Number 4. Tribute to Sherwood Schwartz. Sherwood Schwartz is nothing short of a Hollywood legend and has been the backing behind many of America's most beloved shows. He was also the inspiration for many modern producers and became something of an icon. Matt Williams, the creator of the show Roseanne, wanted to give a tribute to this iconic legend and decided to do so by letting the cast of Gilligan's Island play the characters of Roseanne. The final episode of the show's 7th season featured the cast of Gilligan's Island getting back together, with even Tina Louise, who had often distanced herself from her role in Gilligan's Island, decided to join in on this reunion. It was a rather bittersweet moment for the cast, although humorous for the audience. Number 3. The Coast Guard almost got involved. Some people think the things they see on these TV serials are actually real. Many people who watch reality TV often get confused and end up thinking that the cast of a show are actually experiencing the things that they are and try to save them. This was an issue that Gilligan's Island faced, and the Coast Guard almost got involved. Viewers of the show would call the Coast Guard and start giving them descriptions of the case and tell them how they were stranded in the middle of the ocean. While initially thought of as a serious matter, it was soon discovered to be the product of reality TV and mass paranoia. But if you thought that calling the Coast Guard was crazy, wait till you see the next fact. Number 2. There was an 8th castaway. You read that right. There are many fan theories running around hardcore fans of the show, and they state, or rather vouch for the fact, that there was indeed an 8th member that was supposed to be included in the cast and was finally scrapped due to unknown reasons. Fans claim that if you look at the silhouette of the SS Minnow, the ship that the cast was on when it shipwrecked, you can see the figure of an 8th person along with the other 7. Some fans suggest that the 8th member was cannibalized by the others. Number 1. An abrupt ending, Gilligan's Island was a hit in its first season and was renewed twice for a 2nd and 3rd season. But by the 3rd season, the cast and production crew were wondering if they would be greenlit for a 4th, but nonetheless ended season 3 on a cliffhanger and made it seem as if there would definitely be a 4th season. They were eventually greenlit for a fourth season, and everyone celebrated, but the approval went away as quickly as it came. Sadly, the show's fourth season was scrapped to make way for the Western classic Gunsmoke. From crazy conspiracy theories to the Coast Guard almost getting involved, Gilligan's Island wasn't just a quirky show about 7 castaways, but an entire fiesta of experiences for the cast, crew, and the audience. Little House on the Prairie changed modern television when it debuted, drawing in viewers from the youngest children to the oldest men. But behind the cutesy period dresses, the elaborate sets, and the quaint houses lay secrets that would shock any casual viewers of the show. You know that the Ingalls family was like on stage? But do you know the drama that happens offstage? Well, that's what we are going to find out. Number 10. Michael Landon's physique. Michael Landon, the writer and director of the show, played the lead role of Charles Ingalls, the patriarch of the Ingalls family around whom the show was centered. The show's sets and the actors' portrayal of the characters from the autobiographical children's novel by the same name written by Laura Ingalls. Wilder garnered them wide fame. He always took the chance to take off his clothes and flex his big muscles every chance he got. It can be said that Michael's discipline in keeping his physique is one that translated over to the show, as he was dedicated to maintaining the standard and authenticity. Number 9. Why the show actually ended. Many of us who watch the show wonder why the show ever came to an end, as the quality and writing were always top-notch. While shifting trends in the 70s were a big reason, Michael Landon stated that the reason why the show was finally ended was due to a completely different reason. Michael Landon was surprised in the first place that the show had run with such consistent ratings for nearly 9 seasons. But as soon as Landon saw ratings starting to drop, he realized that Melissa Gilbert, who played Laura Ingalls and was the center of attention, had actually started to grow old, and Landon did not see any reason as to why a character who is married should still be living in their parents' house. Number 8. Mysterious Melissa. Melissa Sue Anderson was known to be a bit of a stranger on the set of the show, although the cast had spent several years together. The cast always found her demeanor to be quite cold, and she often did not socialize with the rest of the cast off-screen. No one really knew why she was so cold towards everyone, and it often baffled people that she worked for so long while being this antisocial. The parents of the children on the set had their theories, though. They had noticed that the mother of Melissa Sue Anderson acted in a rather overprotective manner and seemed to croon over her daughter. They believed that it was her mother who had advised her from interacting with anyone in the cast. Number 7. The Sets of Oz. The show always had a little bit of magic to it that was always unexplainable. Some chalk it up to Landon's excellent direction, but some others point fingers to another amazing fact about the set that scenes of the show were shot on. During the later part of the show, the shooting had shifted from Paramount Studios to MGM. But the cast and crew were in for a surprise because as they ripped up the floorboards of the sets at MGM, they saw that they were standing on what could only be called cinema history. Under the floorboards of the studio that they were using was the original set for the Yellow Brick Road from the 1939 version of The Wizard of Oz. When the cast and crew realized what they were standing on, they were absolutely amazed. Number 6. The Californian Heat. The Little House on the Prairie was always praised for its quaint recreation of pioneer life and for its dedication to dressing the part and acting it out. While the cast were initially excited to be dressed up in period dresses, they soon grew tired of it because of the sweltering Californian heat. They shot the series on the famous Big Sky Ranch, which covers nearly 10,000 acres. While this gave the production crew ample space to shoot the series, they did not account for the tremendous heat they would face. Temperatures go well above 90 degrees Fahrenheit in a day, and Alison Arngrim and an assistant director even fainted from heat stroke on the first day of shooting. But if you thought that was crazy, wait till you see what's next. But before we do, check out the top 5 secrets about this quaint little show and make sure to drop a like. Now on with the show. Number 5. Starring Jason Bateman. Jason Bateman is a name that every cinema lover knows today. He's acted in several films across his illustrious career and is the writer and director behind the gritty and heart-racing series Ozark. His skill in acting and writing has won him several awards, but do you know where this actor's amazing acting career started? You guessed right, the Little House on the Prairie. Jason Bateman starred in the show for the latter end of Season 7 and Season 8. He starred in 23 episodes before the series came to an end and took on the role of James Cooper Ingalls. Bateman claims that he remembers his time on the set very fondly and that the cast were more like a family than a co-worker. Number 4. Carrie Ingalls was played by twins. The entire Ingalls family truly seemed to have a family dynamic between them. Both on and off screen, that was a real delight to watch, but one thing that was unknown to audiences at the time was that the family of 5 was actually a family of 6, because Carrie Ingalls, the youngest in the family, was actually played by twins Lindsay and Sidney Greenbush. Californian law at the time of shooting the series had laws forbidding child actors below a certain age to act beyond a certain number of hours in a day, so to make sure that they could continue shooting for longer hours, they hired a pair of twins for the role of Carrie. Number 3. Nellie and Laura were besties. The rivalry between Nellie Oleson and Laura Ingalls is one that entertained families across the globe. The two characters were known for getting into squabbles with each other and often throwing hands for the pettiest of reasons. But what people don't realize is that Melissa and Allison, the characters who played the roles of Laura and Nellie, were actually best friends in real life. Much to the surprise of audiences across the globe, the two shared a very intimate friendship and remained friends even after the show ended. Their dynamic off-screen is what made their dynamic on-screen so believable. Number 2. Alcohol galore. The set of Little House on the Prairie was not just known for its cutesy sets and dresses. It was also known for being a set where copious amounts of alcohol was consumed through the process of shooting. Allison remembers Michael Landon running through various pours of alcohol and the entire production running through 2 or 3 cases of beer a day. But even though they drank through shooting and post-shooting, Michael and no other cast member showed any signs of being even mildly intoxicated and never once compromised shooting. But this final fact about Michael is sure to shock you. Number 1. Cindy Clerico. Melissa Gilbert played the role of Laura Ingalls, the main character of the show around whom the books are based, and Michael Landon became very much like another father figure for her. Landon's kids and Melissa grew quite close to each other, and Lynn Landon and Barbara Crane, Melissa's mother, became good friends. The two families would often vacation together. Melissa would soon hear that Michael was leaving Lynn for the on-set makeup artist Cindy Clerico, who was 20 years younger than Michael. Melissa completely cut any sort of relation with Landon after this point and did not talk to Landon even after the show ended because of his actions. From the sweltering Californian heat to Michael Landon's affair on set, the show wasn't just TV drama for the audience, but for the cast as well. These top 10 facts show us that there is more to the show than meets the eye. Which fact shocked you the most? Let us know down in the comments section. Also make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you can come running down the hill like Carrie when a new video drops.